After World War II, Taiwan was in a state of extreme poverty. 60% of the population were farmers whose land was devastated by war. Taiwan spent the next 38 years governed by martial law. How has Taiwan become one of the most important countries in the world? So Taiwan was a Japanese colony up until the end of World War II, where in 1945, Japan eventually surrendered Taiwan to China. You'd probably think that after World War II, the last thing that would happen is more conflict. Well, there was a power vacuum that needed to be filled. On one side, you had the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, which was led by Mao Zedong, take on another party, the Chinese Nationalist Party, led by Chiang Kai-shek. Two authoritarian leaders with diametrically opposing views on how to take the country forward. Tensions were high and a civil war embroiled. However, Mao, leader of the CCP, had won. This allowed the CCP to declare a new Chinese state, the People's Republic of China. This is what we consider as China today. With the KMT defeated, they retreated and took control of what we consider as Taiwan today. Okay, so there's no more war, so things can only get better, right? This one's a bit more controversial. Over 1.5 million people from mainland China followed Chiang Kai-shek into Taiwan. Now the KMT, alongside the people that supported them from mainland China, began to clash with the local Taiwanese people. The KMT implemented martial law to prevent any opposing political parties from forming. They jailed and executed anyone that was anti-KMT. Newspapers were running government propaganda and free speech was a big no-no. During this period of martial law, around 140,000 people were imprisoned. Now the crazy thing is, in spite of all of that, Taiwan was actually starting to do well economically. During the 1950s and 60s, the policies implemented by the KMT actually had a really big impact on agriculture. Before, think of the farmers back then as tenants. Farmers would give most of the harvest to the landowners as rent payments, with the farmers barely making ends meet themselves. The KMT reduced the amount of rent farmers would pay to landowners by imposing caps. The government confiscated and redistributed land that was larger than 2.9 hectares. The KMT's vision was for farmers to work on more smaller sized farms that they actually owned. Now you can imagine the native Taiwanese landowners weren't too happy with these policies, but the KMT didn't care. What was quite brilliant was that they realised farms with more land need more machinery and irrigation. Since Taiwanese farms at the time were mainly for grains like rice, human labour on those kind of farms was actually more important than machinery in order to cultivate and harvest the land. The KMT implemented a 9-year compulsory education policy and stressed the importance of science in their curriculum. For all of Chiang Kai-shek's practices regarding human rights, his authoritarian rule did see Taiwan take huge steps economically. As well as receiving foreign aid from the US, who are now in favour of the KMT given that they were anti-communist, Taiwan's international recognition would be acknowledged, right? Nope. The thing was, both the CCP and the KMT claimed that they were the one true Chinese government. Over time, the communist CCP government ruling mainland China claimed that more than 98% of Chinese citizens lived on the mainland. To this day, Taiwan is still not formally recognised by the UN as a sovereign state, but in spite of all of this, Taiwan's KMT wasn't going to let this hinder progress. The Taiwanese government wanted to encourage business in Taiwan. It was easy for big companies like those from Japan to move in because workers in Taiwan were hardworking and educated. Through foreign aid from the US in excess of $1 billion, Taiwan aggressively built up its infrastructure. Taiwan assessed the global markets and found ways to create things that Westerners wanted. If you're watching this video, you're clearly a smart person. You've probably heard that Taiwan is at the heart of producing the semiconductors or computer chips that we use in our computers, laptops, phones, and even gaming consoles. But how did one company in this tiny island position itself to develop 90% of the world's most advanced computer chips? Well, all this started in the 1970s. After inviting American experts to teach the Taiwanese people how to actually manufacture semiconductors, the Taiwanese government hired Morris Chang in 1985 to help them develop their manufacturing industry. In 1987, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company was set up. It would work to meet the chip design requirements of companies and would focus on their manufacturing. So how come they're so dominant today? Well, making advanced chips requires using complex software, explosive chemicals, and machines which cost hundreds of millions of dollars to pattern billions and billions of nanometer-sized transistors onto silicon wafers. TSMC uses secret methods to pattern chips of the highest quality at an unprecedented scale. Throughout all of this, the Taiwanese government has been focused on helping their businesses succeed. In the early 90s, taxes on the semiconductor companies were just at a measly 1.5%. Despite humble beginnings, Taiwan has made rapid progress economically. Taiwan has a higher GDP per capita compared to China, and people on average tend to live longer in Taiwan compared to China. But this is only one part of the story. We can't just ignore the role of China in all of this. Now, if you think Taiwan's story of progress is good, wait till you see this video on how China rose to where it is today.